CFO comes saying, take it or leave it, I'll give you 10 lakhs. And that at that point, I have let myself down. I've let my family down. I have 2 children. I've messed up with their future. I think now is the time to hang in there. I really broke down. And I woke up next morning saying that I am not born for this.
Look at the wealth I have.
What am I crying about in life? I am not born to accept this as my story. I didn't look at it as failure. The one thing that I would like to share with people, and I would sincerely urge, is spend more time in knowing yourself.
Welcome to Journey of Leaders. I'm your host, Captain Raghu Raman. In each episode of this series, I sit down with leaders who have walked their own hard journeys to extract not just lessons, but first principles of leadership that are agnostic of any domain or industry. These are foundational principles that can be learned and applied in virtually every walk of your life, be it professional or personal. Think of it as a tribe of mentors whose hard-earned experience is being shared in this platform.
My guest today is someone who is redefining how India experiences global sports. Monish Shah is the founder and CEO of DreamSetGo, India's luxury sports travel and experiences platform, built to give Indians seamless access to the world's biggest sporting events. From matchday hospitality and private meet and greets with athletes to exclusive access through partnerships with Manchester City FC, Chelsea FC, Wimbledon, Formula One experiences, and the ICC global events. He has built a brand that turns sporting moments into a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I am Captain Raghu Raman. Stay with us on this series to learn the first principles of leadership. Thanks a ton, Monish, for coming here. And as I said to you at the beginning of the show, anyone who wants to know about DreamSetGo and CEO DreamSetGo can go to multiple videos and find that there, including your own podcast.
Yeah.
This is about Monish the person, the leader who has created an entity, changed the experiences for people. But no journey is easy, we know that. This is about those hurdles in the journey that I want to talk about. So let's begin with the origin story. Where were you born? Your childhood? What kind of shaped you? Were you a sports person when you were a kid? Let's start from there.
So firstly, thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor sitting here and having this discussion with you. I've had a wonderful life, and I'd love to explore and chat about that, discuss that further with you through the show. But to start off, born to a Gujarati family in Bombay. Grandfather was from Surat, came to Bombay, started his own textile business. Dad and uncle went into it, created their own 2 separate businesses from there. We went to saris.
Oh.
And
You were not the diamond side of the family.
No, not the diamond side, the textile side of Surat.
Textile side of, Surat.
Seen that fairly comfortable life. I would say we were in the upper middle class segment, but had a really good life.
So which part of Bombay?
Breach Candy.
Breach Candy,
So ever since I remember, I think we moved to Breach Candy when I was probably 6 or something. Lived in that space for like a good 35 plus years of my life. Lovely parents. I have a sister as well. School was literally 50 meters walking distance from home. I think that was also one of the criteria why my mother chose that school for me. So I went to Activity High School. I made some amazing friends who are still a part of my life and very, very close to me. And I played a lot of sports growing up, but I wasn't potentially or I wasn't really extremely talented in any of the sports that I played, but I played for the fun of it. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed...
Was it encouraged in your school?
Sorry?
Was it encouraged, sports, or was it...
absolutely.
Yeah,
it was a small school, Parsi school, co-ed school, but sports and academics were given equal importance. So, if we were playing sports before, after, it was always seen as a very important criteria for you to. And yeah, sports was always encouraged. We played everything: basketball, table tennis, badminton, cricket, football. Um, Everything was given equal importance. Athletics was very, very important in our school. Each house gets a rank at the end of the year
With
where you
sports
lift the
counting,
cup,
yeah,
and
yeah.
sports was a very important part of that,
Contributor in
along
that.
with
Yeah.
academics.
When in your journey after your academics, you decide that I'm not going to do the family business, I'm going to do finance in a different way.
I actually knew that very earlier on, right? So I knew two things very early in my life. Uh, I'm going to stand on my own feet, uh, which meant that I'll be entrepreneurial in life. Uh, and the second thing I knew for sure is that I'm going to create by myself. I'm not going to sit.
But when you say you knew, what made you? I mean, did you say
I think it was
family
just
धंधे में नहीं जाने का मेरे को?
yeah. So it was um, just observing closely. My dad was into business, uh, so I enjoyed that bit of him making the decisions, him being the boss, him being strategic, visionary in his own domain, and that inspired me. Growing up, most of the children, their fathers are their heroes, right? So I really looked up to my dad. My dad is my first hero. Uh, and from there, I mean, I picked up this saying that, look, I want to do something by myself. When I got that thought, I also knew that don't want to do this. So I want to create my own thing. So I don't like being handed something. I like creating my own thing. It's just probably a part of my personality since childhood. So I always knew that I wanted to do something from the scratch. 2000 is when I passed out of school. So I went to Jai Hind for 2 years, science. I knew through that journey that, I want to be a hardcore business guy. I want to do finance. I want to do
But why
numbers.
is that? Didn't
I
genetic
didn't
engineering
particularly.
excite you? Or?
Genetic
But
engineering
it
is
could
what I
still
was
have
planning to
turned
do.
into a business,
I know,
right?
I know, but I think I didn't particularly enjoy science as much.
Mhm.
So I thought this is forced, and I'm pretty good at listening to myself. So I switched from moving from science to business. At that point, then I evaluated my options. There was BBA, which was just coming out. There was BMS, which had just got launched. And I had a friend of mine who was 1 year older than me, had already been in BMS, gave me great recommendations.
Your school type?
My best friend's older brother.
Oh, okay.
So he was already in Lala's BMS at that point. So he gave me good recommendations. I applied for my CET, did well, got into HR BMS. And those 3 years really shaped me. I felt like they gave me a very strong understanding of making presentations, understanding business models. That's something I thoroughly enjoyed because that opened me up to what is a strategic decision. How do you work on a business idea? How do you create a business model? That was my first introduction into what was to come over the years. I think BMS taught me to think big. It taught me to ideate, and that's one of my biggest learnings. And yeah, I think that strength of being confident, believing in myself.
So how do you end up in banking then after?
So I post HR. I went to University of Reading. They had a really good um finance center, which was called ICMA. It was funded by ISMA, the bonds section of Europe, and really, really good course. I did my master's in international banking, investment, and international securities investment and
But that's a
banking.
very niche. I mean, you're getting into banking now.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think at that point, it was all about what's a good career
Line to get
option,
into.
what is going to pay me well, what's going to give me good exposure. I think it was a little bit of a fashion saying, let's go abroad to study. Uh, that could afford that for me. So
So this would also be around 2007, right?
it was 5-6.
5-6,
2005.
5-6, 5-6, yeah.
So I graduated in 2006. So it was a 1-year course, master's course, beautiful course. This is again great learning because this is the first time that logical thinking was introduced to me. So it was all multiple choices. There was no long answers. So a lot of our early learning was rote learning. It was about
Regurgitating what you memorized.
learn it well, memorize it well. So it's great because it taught memory, and then go out and put it on a piece of paper, right? This was the first time that a lot of strategic thinking, logical thinking came in, and I really enjoyed that. I did really well. I was the only Indian that got distinction there. So came back from university. I wanted to create something in India. That I was generally I had that clarity. So I came back. I said, now let's look at getting a good exposure. Now, whether that was 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15 years, that I don't know. I said, I want to get an exposure of working within an organization and get the learnings of how things are done, what the culture is, how people are, what the processes are. How I had this at a young age, I don't know. But I had that clarity that I wanted to kind of work and make some money
out.
early. So banking seemed like a good option to make money.
That's
you
where the
will end
money
up
is.
hearing from your seniors and friends' friends and friends' brothers and parents, etc.
And that's also the time the banking is taking off.
It was
Private
doing
equity,
really well. At
All
that point.
all private banks are
It's just
opening
that
up. Yeah.
I joined, and in a couple of months was the whole crisis. But the whole Lehman,
Lehman Brothers.
the whole collapse, the subprime crisis, etc. But came back. I interviewed with Morgan Stanley and with Deutsche Bank. I got into both. Morgan was a slightly more mid office, back office kind of a role. Deutsche Bank was a full front office role, right?
You're facing customers.
So it was basically just around the time of the crisis. They basically wanted to set up a front office extension. So this was not Deutsche Bank India. This was another center of theirs, which was called DB Center, which was an extension of the trading desk globally, setting up in India, so that you're not a mid office or a back office team that's supporting them. You're a front office team that's doing everything but executing the trade. So traders were very expensive. They said instead of hiring 20 traders in New York or in London or whatever, let's hire 6 traders and let's hire maybe 20 trading extensions in Bombay, right? So I was one of the first 10 people there. Again, I said life has been very kind. I'm very grateful. I was one of the first 10 people that was hired at this DB center. So when I saw that, I saw it as an opportunity. I said if one of the first 10 people means I'm competing against only 10 people. So if I do really, really well, I can grow faster.
And
even though
how old are you at that time?
22, 23. And I was right about that. Within 5 years, I became VP. I was heading...
No, we go slow.
Yeah,
so you joined.
Yeah.
So you joined Deutsche Bank. This is Nariman Point.
No, this was at Goregaon.
Oh, so you
No,
have
the first one was actually at Andheri.
Andheri, okay.
So it was Andheri East. So this is my first
For
experience
discovery.
of...
Okay.
Yeah, so...
This is also Bombay, okay.
So my dad basically said, now you're in the real world. No car, nothing. Go by train. So I take a train, go to Sakinaka, get down at Andheri West, then take a rickshaw, go to Andheri East. Used to take 2.5 hours to get to office and another 2 hours to come back. But I never complained.
But what is the job when you go there?
So
what do you do?
So I started first in securities lending, right? And I started on the London desk, right? So there were 6 traders in London, and they got 2 of us as trading extensions. And securities lending is basically when a trader...
Mortgages is security.
Yeah, so no, this is when hedge funds go short a stock. They need to borrow that stock to make the delivery, and then they pay interest on that, right? So Deutsche Bank used to then borrow that stock out to these hedge funds, etc. And it was great, right? And over the next 2 years, I did so well on that desk that we also then opened up as an extension for uh, New York, Tokyo, Singapore, uh, Hong Kong, and with all of these, the additions started being hired uh, in my team. So I started becoming a team leader.
So you are now the best performer in the 5 years. You have
Yeah.
got you become a vice president.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
So I was at Deutsche Bank for nearly 9 years, right? And I was enjoying. I was getting paid really well. I was learning uh, processes. I was getting to know people, etc. Uh, but what I learned at Deutsche Bank over my 9 years is that organizations on paper are strategic. And you feel like it's all about from the outside, it's all about plan and vision and all of that, right? But when you truly understand people, you realize that it's not only, on the surface, it looks strategic, but eventually it is all about ambitions, fears, egos, insecurities, uh, and that
Tough
as a
protection.
leader, if you really, really correct, the organization can flourish, right? And every organization has a lot of this, because at the end of it, organization is just a word. It's the people that make that, right? So that was a key learning I felt for me through that your strategy, plans, processes is fine, but it's that entire engine is actually the people, right? So uh, people management taught me a lot, but I went deeper into understanding what makes a really, really good organization. I felt at some point between that year 6 to year 9, I started realizing that I'm bored.
So what are the signs which makes a person realize that यहाँ जम नहीं रहा है?
I think it was about I'm the hunger to grow and to do more, right? I've always wanted to be able to create uh, and and make the decisions. I wanted to make the decisions completely myself. I also had that, I think, in my own ego, saying I wanted to be mine, right? So that was a big part of my own internal uh, self worth or drive, where I was like, I want to create. So at some point, I started feeling I'm doing well, but I'm doing it for somebody else. Uh, and I started really believing in myself a little too much, in a good way, but in a slightly arrogant way, where I said, I'm really good at this, right? So
But
why should I
they say
not
that
work for
all
myself?
entrepreneurs require a little bit of overconfidence. Otherwise, they will not be able to jump
Yeah,
off.
and I think that's a part of my learning journey, right? So I'm not the same person I was then, and that was needed for that point for me to become who I am today. But at that point, it got to a phase where I'm like, I'm doing really, really well. I'm earning well. I'm helping this organize. I'm leading people really well. I'm making great money for them. Uh, let's do this for us, myself, right? So that's when I think in year 7 or 8 is when I said, now I'm 100% confident. Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do my own bit, right? I was always super passionate about two things: sports and travel. Uh, so, and with Deutsche Bank, I was traveling left, right, and center. All these cities, was living the good life. Um, this is interesting. Let's start a travel. And I think it was also a phase that time all these travel
You
websites
were
were
taking
coming
off,
out,
yeah.
etc. This was
How
in
old are you at this point?
this was in
30?
2013. I'm around 30. I had this idea about a travel social network. Let's first they should be able to find good itineraries for any destination around the world. And second is when they start traveling, they should be able to share their memories collectively, which can get stitched into an entire timeline. So if you came into my profile, you've been like, okay, Monish has been to 20 countries. Let's see where he's been. Then you realize I've been to Portugal, I've been to Lisbon for 3 days. Lisbon, what I did, where I ate, where I stayed, what my reviews were, my photographs, all of that stitched in, I thought would be very interesting for people to share. And even though Instagram was doing really, really well, Um, I thought it was just photos that you put of different things, right? But you can't really go back and see somebody's entire timeline. So that's how this whole idea started. First, I started uh, working insane amount of hours. I think this is where I picked up high blood pressure. So I would work, and this I think another bit is I learned about myself is when I'm really passionate about something, I go all out, right? So I would work and I would not compromise on Deutsche Bank. So I would get
Your day
home.
job you would do.
Yeah, I'd get home at 10.
Hmm.
Uh, 10 to 3 a.m. every single night, I would work on Travel Libero, right?
You all work on
Travel Libero, which
Travel
is
Libero. The initial
first startup
stage.
that I had. The name of that was Travel Libero. It's called your travel book.
Travel
Libero,
Libero
means
Hmm,
book in
yeah.
Spanish, right? Uh, so I worked on that while I was at Deutsche Bank for a year, and I got an external agency to design it for me, code it for me, and I created a prototype of a website. By then, I had already spent like 1 crore into doing that.
I mean, we are
Yeah.
saying 1 crore today sounds like, but it's a big hole.
It's a big amount.
Massive
and
hole.
I had saved another 2 crores.
Hmm.
So I put in 3 crores to start this business. My best friend at that point, still extremely close to me, gentleman called Malhar Gala, who probably believed in me more than I believed in myself, right? Uh, so I called him over one evening. I said, I'm
Where
planning
were you
to
living
leave
at this time?
Breach Candy
Breach Candy. Hmm.
with my parents at the point. I called him over. He was married. He and his wife came home, and I uh, showed them Travel Libero's website, what my thought was, etc. And I said, now I'm planning to leave. And I've got a website on. Now I'm planning to pursue this full time.
And Gala works with you, or it is
He was a jeweler at that point.
okay?
Right. He has his own Gala Brothers jewelry store, etc. Uh, and he comes in and he's like, I'll put in money, right? Just to kind of out of his
Reaffirm.
privacy, I won't
No, that's all
give
right.
the details out. But he basically put a much larger sum that I had invested into the company, and he said, "Look, I trust in you. I like the person you are. I believe in your values, and I believe in your vision. I think I've seen you do really well. I want to back you, and I'll be a silent partner. And if need be, over a period of time, I will start coming in, right?" Which happened. He became more active over the next 5 years that we did that. Uh, but with his support and with with the fact that I'd put this in, I'd got a prototype going. It's like I've got a good enough funding. I'm going to go out and I'm going to now resign. I want to start
But
my
has the site
entrepreneurial
been
journey.
launched?
Site was already
Launched, and
yeah.
you were getting like revenue or
Nothing.
Nothing.
I didn't know how to make revenue at
Revenue.
that point, right?
At this time, it's eyeballs.
I think biggest learning for me is when you work at an organization where everything is structured versus when you do a startup are two completely different.
Tell me about it.
Same thing I tell my wife, right? When I was dating her versus when I got married,
married, no.
I said these are two completely different things, right? So these were two very different experiences. I was great in a organization setup. I would like to. I mean, great means it worked for me, not greatness in terms of what others would perceive. I thought I was really good at that, and it worked for me, and I was doing well. But I had no clue what was coming my way from an entrepreneurship standpoint. It's a totally different. It's like two
So let's talk
different
about the chalk and the
planets.
cheese.
Yeah.
What is? I mean, the obvious ones are you're going to do everything and all of those things and all of that. But what was the chalk and the cheese between the two?
I think the number one thing is there's nobody else to absorb the pressure. Buck stops at you. It's your decision. In a larger organization, you're making yes, you're making a smaller. You're making a decision for a smaller component. Yeah, the whole and soul of everything is you, right? Your funding can run out if you make the wrong decisions.
At this point, you're just you
Yeah,
and a gentleman who's a silent partner. But your core set is not yet
No.
begun. Okay.
right. So I've got external agencies that are doing my
The
website and my
tooling and the coding and all of that
coding
stuff,
and
yeah.
designing and all of that. Now I have to set up a business.
And you
right?
just was telling in Deutsche Bank you had a process for everything, including hiring. As you
yeah,
mentioned.
including hiring and stuff like that, right? I've started a tech business. I have no idea of tech. I'm not an engineer. I don't know coding. I've never had any kind of product experience, design experience. I didn't know what tools to use, right? And when you when you jump into it without having an experience of working with a startup, with an entrepreneur, on the hindsight, it would have been perfect saying
If
I
you had
would have
actually
left
worked with
and
a,
started. I joined a
make
startup
my trip or something like that,
as
and
a working professional and then done a startup so that I could have seen the grind of a startup. Here I straight jumped in saying,
हो जाएगा.
I'm the shit, right? So let's go ahead and build this. I have confidence in myself. I have the funding, etc. It'll happen, and it happens for a lot. But what people don't see is 99 out of the 100 fail. I was one of those 99, right? Because life teaches you. And today, if you ask me, and I'll tell you, I say Travel Libero was an extremely successful failed startup. The reason I say successful failed startup is because I learned so much. I spent nearly $1 million
Education.
in getting my PhD in entrepreneurship, right? And that's why I feel also failed entrepreneurs can become
Actually, very
really, really good entrepreneurs over a period of time because they know
what not to
what,
do.
and it's about, you mentioned saying it's about, a good leader is one that can figure out which is the lesser of the two wrongs and picking that. And that's the really high level executive leadership based decision that you have to take, right? So, uh, if you've had enough failures, you understand. You understand the algorithm, you understand the pattern, you understand what you do today
And the
will
implication.
create the ripples into what will come later. So, anyways, coming back to
So I want to go into
Libero.
that. So you
Yeah.
started. How did you begin with your core team? What did you do? I mean, did
Yeah,
you,
so
you were talking about hiring. So here
Yeah.
must have been a
So I
different
started
hiring.
on LinkedIn, started hiring professionals from the travel space, working with some friends who were
And where is the office for all this?
Tardev.
Right? Tardev. You
Yeah.
got an
So
office there.
I got an office. I rented one of Sunil Gavaskar's office.
Oh, nice.
So that was
Coincidence.
yeah, it was just like I was looking for an office. It was his office, and landed up getting one.
But a good omen.
Yeah, yeah. I was very happy. I was like getting into somebody very successful, his office space. So uh, moved into a small office. I think it was 800 square feet or something. Hired our first 10, 12 people from the travel space. One was then from the marketing space. So the travel space for people to create itineraries further so that we can have good products on the website. On the social media side and marketing side, just some people.
So I'm asking this question more for a lot of viewers who are probably in the stage of their life. At this point, do you even have a org structure on a whiteboard, or is
Yeah.
it like I find a nice guy, I pick him up, and then allocate work to him? What's
I
going
think
on? A mix of both.
No, so at least like when you're starting off, you know what kind of people you want to get, right? So you want to get 2, 3 people to create a product for you. 2, 3 people for marketing, 2, 3 people to create the tech solutioning for you. Then you have to figure out legal who's going to help with from a So then you start getting some
Structure in place.
yeah, you get some consultants, you get some external companies, some people you hire on your payroll. So you start putting that kind of structure together, and you start understanding tools, and you start understanding processes to build yourself, right? uh, but while you do that, you're swimming in a lake. Now you're in the ocean. It's totally different. The tides are different. uh, the water is different.
Of
Everything.
course,
It's a
in
totally
a
new
core
territory.
team of 10 people, if 2 people quit, that's 20% attrition
Yeah.
straight away. So
And what I realized is, you know, while I had certain funds for it, etc., my biggest learning at Travel Libro was hiring the right kind of people is the most important bit, right? Sometimes you rather have 4, 5 people, but very, very solid, highly experienced people that can make a massive difference. Talent should not be compromised, right? A really good team and a really talented team, which is very ownership based, can make a massive difference. And that time I didn't know too much about what equity stake and all I could have possibly given. Those are all the things that I learned around. But I could see each mistake as I made. At least the next year, I could see the previous years what mistakes I've made, and those were very, very good learnings, right? So I feel this was the
So
universal
let's talk
way
about a
of,
few of them.
yeah, sure.
What were the mistakes? Like, let's say year one, what are the let's if you look at basically an entrepreneur setting up a team, designing the product, taking it to market. What about the mistakes, say, in setting up the team?
So I feel a lot of things were done right as well, right? But from a mistake standpoint, you figure out, when you outsource a lot of things, you'll end up paying a lot of money, but your control is very little. So I would suggest that you always have a build versus buy uh, kind of an outcome, but try to have your core team, which directly impacts your product in house, right? Which I started doing much later. So first, a lot of it was outsourced. Then in the second, third year, I started hiring in house. Then when I hired in house, I realized that this is not the kind of talent that I should have had. I should have had a far more superior talent. By that time, it was too late. We were in year 5, 6, and we were
No, we will go year by
gone
year.
dry.
So we are
Yeah.
year one. Your hiring is, let's say, 60-70% out of.
Yeah. So
it's
I was still, my tech was still outsourced. My social media was still outsourced. And the product team that we had was in house. Uh, you know, Early entrepreneur at that point still thinking it's an all a valuation game. Let's get users. Didn't really think about monetization. Biggest mistake. When you start a business, have absolute clarity how you're going to monetize, right? So have a very clear. My goals were wrong. My goals at that point were that I'm going to create a $1 billion company. So it was very. My whole thought process was all about outcome. This is my end goal. Now I'm just going to keep working towards that. uh, you have to actually think about the process
process to
first,
getting there.
not
Route map.
the
Route
you
map.
can have correct. So that process has to be super clear, and then you get towards then it has to be a natural progression into what scale your company can get to. So you just don't put a random number out there with the startup that you've done. You start with the entire process and the focus on the process really, really well. So anyways, coming back to uh, what we were doing in year one, etc. What was wrong is that a lot of the important part was outsourced. A lot of the in-house stuff was just adding to the product that would go live, right? But if you create uh, and today I understand this very, very well, right? Where we are setting up this entire digital business. Your product, your marketing, and your experience all have to go completely hand in hand. If one is working well, the other is not working well, you can
It's a
create
full
the
value
best
chain.
product.
Yeah.
Your website is not performing really, really well, and you're spending money on marketing. So you spend money on marketing, people are coming onto your website, they're dropping off really, really quickly. Your product is a waste, your money is a waste, right? That set, I wasn't for 2-3 years, I wasn't getting it right, right? So while, like I said, there was a lot of learning, a lot of things were
let me
going
ask
right.
this question again. I mean,
But
the two
yeah,
parts to the question.
sure.
One, why weren't you getting it right? And two, how does an entrepreneur realize, or any leader realize, that he or she is not getting it right? When does that realization sink in? कि ये यार कुछ गड़बड़ हो रहा है इसमें.
Okay. So I think if we break this into the first few years, right? The realization starts coming in after at least a year or two that goes, because you're in that building phase, right? You're in that building phase. At that point, you're thinking, okay, outsource agency, great agency, I'm paying a lot of money.
They must be sincere.
One thing done. And they were. They were. It's just that the gap between what I wanted to what they could deliver and what I was paying could
for
have
them,
been.
you were one of the 17 people
Correct.
they were dealing
Correct.
with, right?
Yeah. So one is, you put out, at that point, it looks perfect. I've got a product team. I've got some consultants. I've got this agency that's going to do my design. I've got this agency that's going to do my tech. I've got everything in place. It's going the right way, right? And dedication and hard work was never an issue. 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I used to work, and it used to all. My wife used to come to office, and that's where we would spend time, etc. But I was all in, right? And through each year, you realize the next year the mistakes that you've done, right? So, like I said, I'll come back to it saying that the biggest mistake that I made is that I didn't have a monetization plan, right? The monetization, I had a valuation outlook saying, oh, if I do this, my company will get valued at XYZ
People will come
million,
to me
I'll
and give
raise
me
more
money.
funds. So I think the whole thought process was very corrupted, not knowing better. It was about, I'll do well, I'll raise more funds, I'll get a better team, we'll do more. Then monetization can always kick in, right? Uh, but biggest learning, and I'll tell every startup, you need to have very, very clear roadmap of how you're going to monetize. So I think monetization method, not having clarity around that, is my biggest learning. Second learning over the years, and I'm not particularly sure if I can break it into year one, year two as such, but second particular learning was around people. Hire the right kind of talent. Because if you don't hire the right kind of talent with mediocrity, you will burn your money, but you will not get the outcome, right? So I moved the entire model from outsourcing to in-house so that we could have more control, we could go faster, we could build better. But with mediocrity, you're still not solving. So I have lost 4 years of my life and enough funds of my company in paying an agency, then paying people, but still not getting to the outcome. I still feel our vision was amazing. The product that we were building was amazing. The kind of features we were putting in were amazing. The design we had was great. But if it doesn't perform at the right kind of pace, then it will fail. If your product is it looks great but doesn't function, if your app hangs, it's not going to work, right? And that's why one of the biggest failures of ours is all these three elements did not come together. We had brilliant marketing initiatives. We got 50 of the top influencers around the world to create content on Travel Libero. And they did that well, but they were also, it was constantly glitching. Their experience was also not great. User experience wasn't great. So we were spending money on adding content. We were spending money on marketing to get users, but our technology never really picked up. It never really delivered, right? Uh, and it all boils down to us not having the right kind of team, right? It also boils down to me knowing that I should have probably had a tech co-founder. How can you start a tech company
without actually
without having a tech co-founder?
the skin in the game?
Right. So these are some of the sharper learnings, right? Not having the right kind of leadership up top for the product that you needed, not having the right kind of team that could deliver the product. I mean, I had a very good team. I'm not, by no means, I'm trying to criticize the folks that we had, but they were earlier on in their lives, in their careers. They didn't have that kind of experience. I should have invested into a 40, 50 lakh resource that came with solid tech background, given them equity, given them ownership. At that point, you're like, hey, I'm going to get to that $1 billion company. I want to hold my equity. But that's myopic thinking. If you're a true visionary, you need to be able to empower people, give them skin in the game so that everybody grows, right? That learning I didn't have at that point, that thought process I didn't have at that point. And that's why I feel like not having the right kind of leadership, not having the right kind of team directly led to not having the right kind of product, and having no visibility around monetization was the biggest mistake. All of this collectively led to Travel Libero's failure.
No, so we don't, it has not yet failed because you have not yet acknowledged that it has failed. You are still struggling, trying to, flog the dead horse or whatever. When is that realization coming? Ki, yaar, ye gadbad ho raha hai? Because that's a very, very tough call for an entrepreneur to where is that fine line between the Nvidia story where he mortgaged his house and lage rahenge isme, Narayan Murthy has done the same thing. Where is that inflection point where an entrepreneur decides ki no, I should not waste good money after that?
So we are 4 years down, right, into this. I think 2013-ish, 13, 14 is when we started. Now we're in 2017. I have this learning of all these things. And by that time, we've got external mentors to help us. We've made over 150 pitches. Investors have not come in.
VCs and all those.
Yeah, PE, VCs, everything, right? And they've given us feedback, etc. Now we're like, nobody is investing. This is when you learn that, oh, where's your monetization model? You're predicting value by saying user base and all of that, but your user base is also not viral. You've not really made any kind of money. So you're not having money come in. You're just burning money. That's when you learn. This when I learned what burning money meant, right? When you talk to, I'd never experienced this in Deutsche Bank, right? Uh, so then we start realizing it's not only about spending money. It's about how am I going to earn money for my model. It was that Instagram phase, Facebook phase. It was all about social media,
Yeah, I remember. I
user
mean,
growth, all of that.
I've been with First Choice, those days called Automart India, and
Yeah.
that heady phase, Patel Bridge ko le lo,
Yeah.
front page ad, it was all about getting eyeballs.
Correct.
And monetization बाद में देखेंगे.
Correct. Exactly.
Conversion
So
कैसे
it was,
बाद में हो.
it was that phase, and then somewhere through that, right, the whole cycle also changed because a lot of the investors had burnt their hands very badly.
So the pendulum also went to the other side.
Pendulum completely went to the other side, right? And through that, I was making all my pitches, right? So at that point, I was like, why did the switch had to come right now? Now I can look at it saying, boss, you were supposed to learn, right? But I felt like, why is this happening to me? Why is the industry changed all of a sudden? And why are we not being able to raise funds? So 4 years down, all of this has happened. Me and my best friend, who's also my co-founder in the business, sit down and we're like, what do we do? We decide let's fund this company by 2 more crores because we had absolute belief in everything that we were doing. And we said let's pivot.
And this 2 crores is basically the ops burn rate per month.
Burn rate for the next, roughly around next 18 months.
18 months, okay.
So we said let's fund in another 2 crores. Now let's look to monetize. So we were quick learners, right? In the sense we would want to then adapt and move. Let's start monetizing, right? So we said we could put all these itineraries out and get bookings in. But still app wasn't like functioning the way it should. It wasn't crisp. It wasn't like seamless. It's because we were not tech founders. We didn't understand it. But we started having some very interesting conversations with online travel agents. I won't name the company just to respect them. But there was two OTAs that came in and said, we will invest in you. So that gave hope. That hope comes with another set of learnings.
Another set of bosses who will tell you what to do.
No, that nothing is over till it's over.
Okay,
right?
of course.
So don't get excited.
Just with the wooing.
Yes. So both of them very promising. We'll invest in you, etc.
Lots of due diligence.
One
happening.
of them came and had multiple meetings at a founder level with us and said, we'll buy your company. We'll do an acqui hire. We'll give you 2 million worth of stock of our company. And we'll put each of the founders at, by that time, my best friend and co-founder had got more active. He used to spend at least 70% of his day in the business and we used to go for all the pitches together, etc. That happened, and then that company said, we'll acqui hire you. First time I heard what acqui hire was, and very interesting concept. Okay, we'll each get a salary of 1.5 crores each. We'll have 2 million in stock, in equity, etc. And we said, okay, this is sounds okay. We're acquired. We've done okay. So we meet with their CFO, with the founders, and all we say is, we'd like to have at least 30-40% of the deal in cash, and the balance as equity, so that the amount that we've invested, something comes back, right? And by that time, my co-founder, because he had also he used to take no money. I used to take 20 lakhs. From going from 1 crore, I was taking 20 lakhs a year. In that phase of 4 years, I'd had 2 children, back to back. So my daughter was born in 2015. My son was born in 2016. 2017, I've got 2 young children at home, raising them up, giving them the lifestyle that I would want to, taking money from my dad. 20 lakhs, not enough. Dad was super helpful at that phase, And I'm at this phase and I'm like, okay, look, I'm really tight and I don't know how to save money. I like spending. I like the lifestyle that I've been used to as a child. It wasn't extravagant, but it wasn't super tight as well. But I was feeling the pinch. I was very, very tight. So when this opportunity came, I'm like, okay, great. 1.5 crore sounds great. Company's moving somewhere. it'll be a success story. At that point, it was a lot
Also
about
about
shame.
shame.
And
Yeah,
I'd not dealt with failure and shame and all of that at all. Right? I was this boy in the family that was doing really, really well, and that ego was quite pampered in a certain way. So I hadn't faced that yet, and I'll come to that in a bit. Uh, so far it's failing on paper, but it's known to me. It's not known
not
to the
the
world.
world. Yeah.
Right? So the world you're still kind
Yeah,
of building,
tech
and you've got
guy
all
doing
these
so well.
influencers and all of that, and the story and the narrative is controlled, right? But what the cracks are, right? So this came as a great opportunity. We asked for this. They said, okay, we'll come back to you in 2 weeks. They didn't come back at all. After 6 months, they came back saying, why don't you we've acquired a company in Gulf, right? In Saudi. And why don't you create a white label solution? We
So we
think
can
this
keep
layer on top of our booking platform would be amazing. So there was vision in what we were doing. It's just things didn't align. We had made enough mistakes, etc. They said, why don't you do this? We'll give you 3 crores for creating a white label solution for us. Great. Monetization. We're like, okay, let's do this, right? Again, a learning comes in, get everything in contract, right? So we said, okay, big company, etc. Chalo, let's go ahead. They said, we'll phase this up. Over 18 months, you'll get 3 crores, etc. Start building this. Start giving us everything on our website. Start putting all your itineraries, your journeys, etc. And then people can come and book packages. 6 months down into it, we're doing the tech efforts, etc. We've not got paid at all. We've already started doing this. And then after 6 months, they came and said, we're shelving this. Because they were going through a turmoil themselves. We're not going to be able to kind of do this. And we won't be able to pay you. So we're like, boss, we're 6
Was the work
months
done
down.
also?
You owe us at least 1 crore, right? CFO comes saying, take it or leave it. I'll give you 10 lakhs. Do what you want. We're a massive company or a small one. Go fight the case. That really shook me. I wasn't ready for this. And that's what I felt. I said, I'm not ready for this yet. I have been caught off guard. I've had multiple learnings. And that broke me at that point.
How big is your team at this point?
Close to around 14 odd people.
14 people.
Yeah.
What's happening in their heads?
In their heads as well. I mean, they're getting paid well. They're getting their appraisals. But they can see that I'm going through stress, right? And a leader's energy gets picked up by everybody. They can see that I'm under stress. But there are highs and lows along this journey, right? When you feel like you're getting acquired, when you feel like you've got a 3 crore one, you're celebrating, you're doing this. So until that break point came where they said, we're not paying you, I think the team was okay because we were growing, right? Now we're like, okay, this white label solution. Now we have a business model. We have a monetization plan, but we've put in more money, Malhar and I, right? So we are actually stretched to the T. We don't have more money to put in. But at that point was such a high-low situation at the same time. We're like, now we've cracked it. Now we finally
you're
understood
buying dopamine,
monetization. We've gone there. We know now what is going to go next. But life hits you hard, right? Life, you can be prepared for whatever, but it'll throw a completely different situation at you. We never expected this massive OTA to turn around and say, we're not going to pay you, right?
In hindsight, probably did you the biggest favor.
Yeah,
But anyway.
probably, right? Today they work with us.
Yeah.
So it's great, but
done in a bad way, let's put it that way.
yeah, I mean, I think it just teaches you about people, about life, and I was naive. I thought everything was just nice. It was just clean and shining, right? So I had to learn my own lessons, and I feel life just teaches you. Your story unfolds because it teaches you something. So I never look at anything as crisis now or as a worst case scenario. I just sit back and silently observe that it's teaching me something, right? So the whole outlook has changed. At that point, I felt like, okay, now that was my breaking point. We said, now we don't have more fun.
When is this exactly? Like which year,
This
which
is
month?
around 2019.
19.
So 18 is when they came on board. We started doing things. Early 18 is when we put in the additional 2 crores. This is in around April, May of 2019. And we're like, okay, now, ho gaya. This is it. We can't pull this anymore. And then Malhar and I sat saying,
Where did you sit? Where were you? In
In
your
the
office?
office.
In the office.
In the office.
Yeah.
Team was gone
Mhm.
late night. Uh, and both of us are sitting. At that point, I used to be a smoker. And it's all about the energy and the mindset, right? And I was feeding in the wrong things into my system as well, right? You're smoking, you're having a conversation, you didn't know how to deal with stress. Um, and both of us are like, look, now we're stretched, we're completely dry, we don't have the money. Now, finally, after all these years, we thought we knew how to do this, but we don't have the options because we've, anyways, kind of extended that further. And we had exhausted all the sources that we had, friends, family, our own money, etc. I thought was completely dry anyway since a few years because I put in all my money into this. He was relatively more
Well
wealthier,
off.
so he was kind of putting off.
So I want
putting
to
in.
ask you a question here. At this stage, is there a sense of recrimination or angst on either him or you because he took a punt on you and it didn't work out?
So I will come to that, right? Because this is a defining moment in my life. This gentleman called Malar Gala uh, has made a massive impression in my life, and I'll come to why. But both of us are sitting there, and we're like, look, I think now is the time to hang in the boots. I think we'll have to.
Who says this first between the
I
two?
say that first.
You say that
right?
first.
Uh,
Was it spur of the moment or were you planning कि आज बोलना है यार?
no, we are best friends.
So
We
you
used
don't
to
need
share
to plan
everything.
and
We were talking daily. We were having lunch together, sitting in the same cabin, very open with each other. And we were brothers, right? So we had each other's interests. We understood each other. We understood the wavelength. It was identical personalities in two separate bodies, right? Um, so I say that, and he agrees. And he's like, I think it's the right thing now. I think we can't stretch this anymore. Of course, both of us are stressed. But he is slightly more calmer, uh, more more grounded than me at that point. I am a little hysteric, and I'm feeling deep stress that I have not faced before. How
how
am I
old are
going
you
to
again at this point?
tell? This is in 2019.
19.
So this was around 7 years ago. I'm like 35. Uh, and I feel deep stressed. Uh, Smoking a lot, not sleeping, multiple emotions going through. First of all, I have let myself down. I've let my family down. I've let Malhar down. I left his investment down. I have two children. I've messed up with their future. My opportunity cost of if I was still at Deutsche Bank, I would have probably been at 3.5 crore. Too much going on in my head. And it's like all these thoughts were just spiraling.
How are you dealing with it? You're not sleeping well, obviously.
I think so. So this all happened. All of this happened for just 72 hours in my life, right? And that's the beauty of it, right? So this is, I'm telling you, this is when that decision happened, when that company said take it or leave it, and we said okay, now we can't because now we are already
Backed against the wall.
back against the wall, and then we've got to we are both extremely ethical, right? So we said in our contracts with our employees we've got a 2-month notice period, etc. So we sat down, we did this. The first thing we said is let's pay 2 months to everybody. I'll have the conversation tomorrow with the team. And we took an instant decision because both of us were thinking about this the minute it happened. That 24 hours was, this was on both our heads, and we don't have the resources to move forward. uh, so we said the first, we thought of the team first, right, before anything else. Uh, so we both agreed on it right away, saying let's do this. Okay, let's hang in the boots, let's have a conversation with the team, but let's get the team paid. By that time, that additional funds that had come for those for that 18 months was from Malar.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because I was anyways,
And
I
this
put
2
in
months
everything.
notice also will come from him.
No, that I said I will do.
Okay.
So I told him I will take care of this. And I went to my dad and my sister. Sister was also married. Husband was doing really well. And I borrowed money from both these individuals to pay for that. At that point, it worked out to somewhere around 30 odd lakhs and another 20 lakhs to close things up or whatever. So I was overnight in to the debt that I already had. I was in a further debt of another half crore, but from family. And I remember that moment that I actually sat my wife and my dad and my mom and my sister down, and I really broke down, saying I've failed. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm probably the only time that I've really let loose in terms of an outburst.
How old were your
Because
kids?
35. How old are my kids?
Kids.
Uh, 3 and
So
2 and 3.
too young to
Very,
sense.
very young. Yeah. So this is 2019. Daughter was born in 15, son in 16. Uh, so 3, 4 at that point. So I've sat these guys down. Same thing with my team. When I sat my team down as well,
Any
I
even
broke down.
faint inkling of "I told you so" from anyone?
Yeah, it comes somewhere.
Get the vibes.
And it gets expressed as well. But I have a lovely family, which were very respectful of my emotions at that point, right? Uh, of course, you know, that out of love and care, that thing comes saying, "Why did you do this? I
Bola tha
told you,"
tere ko.
kind of a thing. But my family was more concerned about my
How you
well-being
felt,
and
yeah.
my emotions, and that's why I say that I've been blessed with incredible people around me. Um, so at that point, their support didn't break me. Then when I told my team was very mature about it.
It happens the next day.
The next day, and I cried and I told my team as well. When I told them, and I said, we'll pay for the notice period, and the team was generally quite supportive as well. So that didn't further break me. And then I sat Malhar down that night, and I again I broke down, and I said, I'm really sorry, right? Uh, and the thing that he said is what changed my entire outlook, right? He said, I backed you uh, because I knew you were the right person for this. And I still believe that you're the right person for it. B, I've been involved since the last few years. So I know exactly the effort that you've put in and everything that we've done from our end. And we've had our learnings, but we've had it together. C is, I don't want you to focus on what money I've put in, what I've lost right now. I need you to focus on finding yourself a job or figuring out what you need to do next, because you've got 2 young children and I don't want to see you in this state. So whatever it is about
Returning
how
and all
much
that.
money we
वो बाद में
put,
देखेंगे.
whether returning, it's like, first of all, you don't need to return because I made a calculated decision. But I said, I just find it that I feel I owe you this because I've let you down. You packed me and I feel like I want to kind of give you that money down. And he's like, it's amazing that you think like this, right? That you're at this point thinking how I'm going to give you this money back. You could have just turned around and said, boss, you are an equal investor. We've lost it together, right? And fourth thing he said is, the opportunity cost that you've had is far higher than the investment that I've made. So you've actually put in a lot more into this company, right? So it's not that you've lost mine, you've lost a lot for yourself as well, right? And we've lost it together. And the last thing he said is, don't worry about anything else. Nothing changes in our life. We are still best friends. Our relationship does not change, and we're still best friends till date. It's just that sometimes don't find time for him because I've got so busy. But he's a patient bystander.
Best friends
wishing
don't
for
need
me.
time.
Correct, exactly. So he basically then said, look, do this. You need to work on yourself first, your family first. Take care of settling your life back in. And that's when I was like, what am I crying about in life? It hit me saying,
Look at the wealth I have.
yeah, I'm like, okay, I've lost this financially. I have a family that's been incredibly supportive. I have an incredible wife that is just like there for me saying, look, it's only going to get better from here. Not once did she point a finger at me. Not once. Nothing in terms of like, you've done this, or, what about
What
us?
have you got me
no,
into?
no doubts, nothing. Just sheer support saying, I'm sure you're going to figure this out, right? And then this best friend who's turning around and saying, look, focus on yourself. I want you to prioritize you before anything else. No blame game, no drama, nothing. Not once saying, you lost my money. I trusted you. My family trusted. His family had also put in money. He said, I will take care of all my family members on what I need to
उसको भी
say.
ताने सुनने पड़ रहे होंगे. Naturally.
But I think his family is also amazing. Like again, like they loved me as well. Till date, his family is very fond of me. So they were all very, very supportive. They knew that our intentions were right. We did everything. So I slept that night. And I woke up next morning saying that I am not born for this. I am not born to face this kind of stress. I am not born to accept this as my story. And I will rise back. It's okay. I've come back to the starting line. I will start again. So my mindset completely changed. And I feel like all these factors really helped there. I had some form of a spiritual awakening there, saying there's just so much more to life than this.
Were you a spiritual person before that?
I was.
You pray?
I was never a religious person. I was a deeply spiritual person from the start. But it was just it was not explored. I started
So
exploring.
you didn't have pain. How would you explore?
Yes. So then I started really exploring. And at that point, one of my cousin's husband, so my Jijaji, I'd gone for a walk with him at Marine Drive. Every person in the family knew that this was going and thought that this would be hard. And he told me, I just want you to meet this one individual, which if you don't want, I don't need you to. But if you want to, I feel he's the modern Buddha, right? And there is something called the Yoga Sutra, which was written by sage Patanjali. I want you to get introduced to that. I said, I'm not sure. I'm going through a lot right now. But again, in a few days, I just felt like, there is a sign. I called up my Jijaji and I said, okay, I want to meet this individual. Went and met him in Kandivali, maybe a year or two older than me. His name is Abhishek Shukla. Extremely practical guy, knows Yoga Sutra in and out. I started spending some time with him, understanding and learning the Yoga Sutra. He didn't take a single rupee from me. A lot
What
of
is the
questions
Yoga
that
Sutra?
he was asking. Yoga Sutra is basically a book which is down from the Vedas and all of that. It is a summary of its 194 aphorisms, and it teaches you how to. It basically says one of the main sutras is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, how to completely shut the mind. So how to do things in your life, to meditate, the right kind of food you eat, the right kind of practices that you have, to get to a state of extremely high energy where the mind can be non-active, so the real consciousness can awake. And it's the concepts which are. And at that point, while I was still figuring out, I got obsessed with the Yoga Sutra and with different religions and understanding their text, right? And I realized Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism are all very, very similar. They're all part of the same. And what I love about Yoga Sutra, it doesn't apply to a religion as such. Even though it comes out of the Hindu philosophy, it's very generic. It is not a religious text. It is a spiritual text.
Would we be right in concluding that there is no way you would have discovered that frontier unless you had experienced this pain?
100%. 100%, right? And my outlook started changing overnight. I started spending more time with myself. I started meditating. I was in a great space. I had great self-belief. And I was like, this is growth. I didn't look at it as failure. That's why I say successful failed startup, right? Because I was like, this has taught me. This is something happening in my life that I don't realize at this point, which is supposed to take me to my next destination. And there is a learning that comes out of this. So I said, okay, now let's look forward, right? And very quickly, I said, let's erase this burden that's been sitting on me, and that I've been feeling. And what's done is done. I can't control the past. I can't change it. I should be happy with whatever life has taught me. And I'm so grateful for so many other things. So what is to complain? There are so many amazing things. So I looked at my glass being 90% full and not focus on the 10% that was empty. And on the 10% empty, I just said that, look, if this has the water's spilled over, it's spilled over, there'll be a particular reason. Now let's try to. So I started spending a lot of time understanding myself, etc., and
But
understanding.
what was your daily ritual? I mean, what this is a more abstract philosophical way of looking at it. But till that day, you went to a job, came back. There's a team. You're struggling. And now suddenly, all of that is a vacuum.
Yeah.
So what are you physically doing in a daily ritual to walk out of this hole, to climb out of this hole?
So I actually climbed out of it overnight because when I woke up and I said, this is not how I'm going to be, like, just, it was like a switch that just went on. And then Yoga Sutra came after that, which just helped elevate my journey. But that switch overnight saying, this is now how I'm supposed to live life. I am so grateful for having all these wonderful people. So I just saw that it's 90% full. Then that whole focus didn't go on the 10% being empty, which was the focus the previous few days, right? Saying, why is this happening to me? I said, I'm not a victim. I'm actually blessed. So my perspective changed. Saying, look at where you are and not what life has versus what others are going through. And then that's when I said, what am I doing to my health? Because I woke up very heavy chested with a lot of this intoxication of cigarettes in my body, etc. Right? And I said, this is not right. This energy is wrong. The right word is energy. That energy felt wrong. And I said, I need to change this energy. And that energy, once you decide you want to change, then doors just automatically open up.
Yeah.
So once I made that change, everything started flowing so quickly. Meditation wasn't about just sitting and chanting. It was about looking at my patterns.
What did I do?
Why did I
do that?
pick up at a young age? And that just became a pattern now that I'm endlessly flowing on. Once you start understanding, the mind just opens up completely. And then within a week or something, I reached out to two individuals. Again, coming back to why life and universe is so kind. I reached out to this one gentleman called Rahul Mirchandani, who used to work at Deutsche Bank with me, and now was the product head of Dream 11. And I reached out to my brother-in-law, who went to school with Harsh Jain and Bhavit Sheth, who were the co-founders of Dream 11. And I told both these guys that, can you get me a meeting with Dream 11? At that point, I was very open, saying, I don't know whether I'll do a job now or whether I will start something again, etc. But I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur only. And I already had the idea of what today's DreamSetGo in my mind any which ways. So I go there. Dream 11 had just started a sister brand called FanCode under the Dream Sports umbrella. First sister brand. This is early in March. In May 2019 is when I think FanCode was born. And Rahul tells me there is so both of these individuals reached out to Harsh, and Harsh said, why don't you look at one of these roles at FanCode? And I go and meet one day, 8-9 presentations, 8-9 meetings I have for this VP role at FanCode. And the last one is Harsh. So I go to meet Harsh. I'd already done some homework. I had studied Dream 11 in detail. And because I had my own app and my own thing, I had gone with some ideas for him. And that half an hour chat became, I think, a good 90 minutes. He heard all these ideas, etc. And then he asked a lot of questions about me. And somewhere me being a failed entrepreneur really attracted him, right? Because I think he already had that part about the grind, certain elements that he saw that he thought would be really good in.
Plus, he's getting $1 million educated guy.
Correct. But I think where it really aligned is that I told him about the idea for a sports travel company. And I told him that, I used to go to watch Chelsea games all the time. And I'm a hardcore Chelsea fan, football fan, because he wanted to know more about me. So he was asking a lot about me and passion and what I like, etc. He wasn't more about, skill set and, do I know coding or whatever, right? So he took time in understanding me. which also is a really good learning for me, that I have looked to kind of mirror from him. And through that, I told him that, look, I used to last minute buy these tickets at $500, £600 sit somewhere in the corner, and always wonder, why is there no Indian company that gives these experiences, gives this access? If people want to spend money, how can they get this, right? And that's the first idea for DreamSetGo that came to my mind. And I was telling him about this. Destiny had it. He had 2 weeks ago tried to acquire a company in this space itself.
Okay.
And the deal didn't go through.
Okay.
For whatever reason. Who today is one of our competitors. But at that point, the deal didn't go through. And he really wanted
Indian company.
to...
Indian company.
Indian company.
Okay.
And Harsh wanted to invest in this company any which ways. And
it did happen.
2 weeks later,
Here you
so
walk
it was
in.
parallelly, right? Like Destiny, universe conspires things sometimes for people to meet. So his acquisition didn't go through of this company that he wanted to acquire to start a second sister brand. And Travel Libero was going down. That was happening at the same time. 2 weeks later, both of us are having this conversation. And he's like, he's a crazy Manchester United fan, right? That's why Dream 11 gets its red from, right? And he had a very similar experience where he bought a really amazing ticket, hospitality ticket, dressed up in all Manchester United clothes, red top to bottom, and realized that his hospitality ticket was in the away side.
Oh, okay.
And if going like that, if he would have gone into the away side, he would have
come back alive.
So he sold that ticket, and then he bought a general cheap ticket and sat somewhere and landed up paying for that as well. And he's like, we need great access. We need trusted partners. And he said, would you be interested in creating this, right? This idea that you have, go out and build it. We'll fund this. But you'll have to be a part of the Dream Sports umbrella. I didn't have money to invest any which ways at that point. So I thought this is...
Any umbrella.
This is the universe just showering me with some kind of a blessing, right? Where I still am the founder, I'm the CEO of the business, and I'm not putting any money, right? I'm giving a big stake away and taking a smaller stake. But that I feel is more of a win for me than a loss. So I thought of it as an incredible opportunity. They came back to me saying, you need to come back in 72 hours and present to the entire internal board that they had. 72 hours to come and present. I slept for 6 hours in those 72 hours. And I went straight at building my business model, presentation, everything. I go there. I am totally zoned out. I barely slept. But something within me finds that
muscle
energy
memory
to present.
kicks in. Starting from the school presentations.
Yeah.
You know, those layers.
All of that.
Yeah.
So I go and I present my idea. And then I go down to my car.
How long did the meeting take place?
1 hour.
It's just you now?
Me presenting to some 14, 15 people.
But it's just
room.
you?
Just me.
Malar is not with you?
No. Just me.
But what was the structure that you had in mind? Just loosely. You spoke about the opportunity, you spoke about...
Everything. I had created an app, I had created a 3-year business model, I had done everything, I presented everything. Some assumptions could have been right, wrong, because this was again a slightly different... Yeah. But I put my entire vision out like any other. I'd done 150 investor pitches at Travel Libero, so I was a master at this now. And the third part actually in that conversation with Harsh was that our journeys were very similar. Except that the time that Travel Libero went down is when Dream 11 really, really picked up. But he understood the whole grind of that 5-year struggle, right? So he understood my journey, my pain, my fire to continuously keep going at it, and told him the whole story as well. So I've done this presentation. I walk out. I think from what I hear from them later is that the room was divided. Half were in the favor, half were not. But Harsh was in the favor. Because
Did you get a sense from reading the room?
Yeah. And I read the room pretty well.
Obviously, 150 pitches. So
I could figure out that there were some people that were just not interested in this, didn't believe in this idea or the opportunity, etc. But the individuals that really, really mattered, Harsh, Bhavit, really, truly believed in the idea and in me. And I think that was the veto decision that was taken, which I came to know by the end of the day. But finished this presentation. I'm not thinking of the outcome. And then I went
Where was
home
the
and
pitch?
it was in their office, the Dream 11 office in Lower Parel.
Lower
That
Parel.
time it used to be in Peninsula Business Park, well up. And that's where in my mind I was like,
I saw
I'm
Nachi.
going to be a part of this. I just knew it. The
Yeah.
minute
You
before I
went to
gave the interview,
yeah,
I knew
know.
it
I will
that
be
I
here.
will be here. I
Manifestation.
manifested it
Yeah,
or whatever that
I
I'm
know.
going to.
I've had that experience a couple
Yeah.
of times in my life. Yeah.
And then like 7 days from there, I was already
In the cabin.
in the no cabin culture.
No,
Yeah.
there's-
So I was at one of the desks. I was creating DreamSetGo from Dream 11's office. They had a team set up to help me with. So they got a couple of designers, a couple of tech folks, etc. from the Dream 11 team, saying till they get their team on board, you will help them for the next 1 year in helping build. And man, how lucky was I? I had incredible investors. Again, the journey just continues. I feel you put out the right energy, the right kind of people get attracted to you. And I had amazing support in Harsh and Bhavit. So the Dream Sports ecosystem was the perfect place for DreamSetGo to get to be born. And then we went ahead. I had all this help. I started hiring my team. Now I had the funds to for DreamSetGo to go out and build it the way I wanted to. And they said, "You build it. We'll have our board meetings once every quarter. You tell us what you need, etc. We're there to kind of help you out, and we'll ask you the tough questions just so that we know that you're not." And I also looked at those uh, as mentorship opportunities for me to learn on where I was going wrong. So I never looked at my board meetings as stressful ones, saying, "Arey, I have to give a narrative or I have to." I looked at it saying that wherever I would get picked up for or questioned were areas that I should learn. So I was never looking at praises. I was never looking at. I was not interested in hearing what I'm doing well. I was always looking at feedback or criticism on what we were not doing well, because I was like, this is the opportunity for me to learn and grow, which is what I missed at Travel Libero. Of course, if a board meeting's gone tough and they've gone hard on me, it's not that I was
No,
like,
you're
oh,
happy
I'm
about
very
it,
happy
yeah.
about it. But I would sit and internalize and figure out what the learnings from that were. What are they trying to tell me? I didn't ignore that. And I think that really, really helped, because it helped me. I grew so quickly as an entrepreneur. I had done all the grind.
Oh, you had $14 billion, $8 billion
Yeah.
expertise
And I
telling
had
you.
done all the grind in those 6 years of Travel Libero. So I had lots of learnings which I could not apply to Travel Libero, but I could apply to DreamSetGo on day one. And then with that little bit of mentorship and guidance on the direction and putting me into what they did right, and the tools that I had available, just spearheaded and rocketed DreamSetGo's growth, right? DreamSetGo's also had its fair shares of learnings and all of that. But that's where, again, our investors have been such patient investors that they've helped us kind of look at the larger picture rather than smaller failures. They all realize that smaller failures will lead to larger
I mean,
successes.
you are very clearly a brand ambassador for people who would want to hire or onboard individuals who have failed dramatically and failed with their own money, not failed with other people's money.
Yeah.
So that also sort of adds to your repertoire in terms of having failed with your own money.
Yeah.
There are a lot of leaders out there who have tout failures in their CVs, but no skin in the game in that failure. How big is DreamSetGo now in terms
140 plus people.
140 plus people,
Yeah.
and you
And we've grown at a 40+% CAGR year on year.
year on year.
Hopefully doing pretty well. And then, of course, we've had our learnings along the way. But
Any learning that was new and which you had not experienced before, but this was like a learning that came in a environment of plenty.
no, I mean, see, while I won't say it's been the office and all was amazing, because a lot of it was we were kind of enjoying the benefits of what Dream 11 had achieved. But we had our own budgets that we were dealing with. So it wasn't that we had, like any other startup, we had our budgets and we were hiring and we were doing our stuff within our budgets. But just before I come to that, right, 6 months into DreamSetGo and COVID hits. And we've hired 12, 13 people. I have my board meeting with Harsh and Bhavit. And again, I mean, these are all things which were new to me, and I'm learning, right? And both of them tell me saying, use this as an opportunity to build an incredible team and to be ready for when it opens up, right? And pivot and do things. We are backing you, and that having that support give in it just gives you that
Mojo.
incredible
Mojo.
energy.
Energy.
It gives you that incredible confidence, right? Just that I want to go out and achieve. I want to go out and do things for these investors, for my team, right? And we did a couple of things during COVID because there was no travel, there was no sports. We were hit the most. But in that time, we went out and hired the right people. Uh, we hired people from our competitors, we hired people from top travel companies, and we started building the right kind of sports and travel team. And we did partnerships with Chelsea Football Club, with Manchester United, with Manchester City. Uh, and when we said when we go live, we'll have the right kind of ammunition to be able to go to market. And that really, really helped. Because in the first year itself, we took more than
So you were the
15,000
true
people.
beneficiaries of revenge tourism.
Absolutely.
In some
We
sense.
took 15,000 people in the first year itself. We serviced them across different sports, across different travel groups, etc. that we did. And the first year itself, once we kind of opened up, etc., the T20 World Cup was happening in Australia. And we took 3,000 people across corporates and individuals, not knowing too much. We're still learning. But we landed up, I think there was certain momentum, there was certain 3,000 people to Australia, did really, really well. Still only broke even in the tournament because we had a lot of inventory for the final that we didn't land up selling because we thought India will come to the final. So there's again,
those
you have
variables.
A lot of profit we made, we lost because we didn't sell the finals because we were holding with the greed that we'll make a lot more money when India comes into final. Then we'll open up sales, right? So you'll have learnings along the way. But I think one of the things that we do really, really well is once we've had a failure, once we've had a learning, we ensure that we don't repeat that. I think that is our biggest strength.
I'll also ask you some questions which are much more particular to certain aspects of service. There's basically a service industry, an experience industry. A lot of variables are not in your control.
Yeah.
And I remember once, this is Microsoft, one of these big giants, took a whole bunch of CIOs to Macau. Great experience, this, that. On the way back, there was a typhoon warning and some people missed their flight. And for them, the whole trip was a typhoon ka to kuch kar nahi sakta, right? So you have a lot of such variables in the experience industry, which would be attributed to the people who took them, regardless of whether it was the weather, it was one of these 3,000 getting drunk and misbehaving or whatever. How do you deal with that volatility?
So again, I think, and I'll come to that, but through this entire giant that we've started creating now within DreamSetGo, you're dealing with, like you said, so many people, so many external
and
variables.
HNI egos.
You're dealing with so many different people, corporates, etc. Right? Not too many people from the outside realize the scale at which you're dealing with so many. That scale doesn't necessarily mean it's scale in terms of revenue,
number of touch points,
but it's the touch points and the number of items that you're doing,
and
right?
number of
You're
things that can go wrong.
I think where it's really, really challenging for us as founders is that you're dealing with investors, you're dealing with vendors and partners, you're dealing with clients, and you're dealing with people, right? And I look at it as 4 different directions, but I look at all 4 equally important. So the right kind of energy needs to be invested in all 4 to have.
Now you learned that triangle, that
success,
whole composite
right? The diamond
piece.
in that sense, right? So we feel that all these 4 relationships are extremely important. I cannot not give that same kind of energy to the vendor that I give to a client, because if I don't have the right kind of partners, how will I deliver the right kind of experience? If I don't have the right kind of investors, how will I build the right kind of growth for my team? If I don't have the right kind of team, how will I deliver the right experience to the clients or create the value for my investors, right? So all of this is extremely crucial and important for me to be able to give the right kind of energy, time, and attention, right? Which means those multiple touch points require insane amount of attention, which means you're on all the time, right? And you can't take anything for granted. And I feel that's been my biggest contribution to DreamSetGo, that I have not put any of these elements on any low priority. I've given all of it equal amount of priority, but then you figure out what situation requires what kind of priority. But there is so many factors that happen. I think this is where the spiritual self comes in, and this is where my daily practice comes in, and I'd love to talk about that a little more as we move forward. But there's just so much calm and clarity in my mind that I don't look at these as stressful items anymore. I did look at it through this journey of DreamSetGo. Also, I've learned the spiritual journey has also been
it's a training journey,
process.
yeah.
It's stuff that I have learned.
That's not something you can switch on.
No. It's been, I have worked very, very hard on what I eat, what I do, when I sleep, what kind of content I watch. There's a whole practice that I have, and I'm failing constantly at it as well. But every day I'm moving 2 steps forward. If I'm moving 1 step behind, I'm moving 2 steps forward. So eventually I'm getting ahead. And when you don't think about the outcome and you think about the process and you think about what you can do really, really well, it
you
doesn't
generally
feel
have a good
stressful
outcome
anymore.
It may not be the outcome you want, but generally it will be a good outcome.
And I'm not saying what the outcome.
You accept the outcome.
Generally, you get very, very stressed when you are thinking a certain outcome should happen. And when something else happens, it's not meeting your expectation. So it creates disappointment. I can only control the process. I cannot control the outcome, because the outcome is only not dependent on what a Monish does. It depends on multiple other factors, right? Let's take a classic example. 2023 World Cup. We were official agents. We had committed 500 tickets to a client for a game happening in Chennai. And generally, based on past and all, we're like, being official agents, we'll easily be able to get that kind of inventory. We've done their hotels, 500. The whole campaign has been run, everything. When we got the inventory, we got only 50 tickets.
50
tickets for that stadium at that point. We're short 450. And we had to kind of go out and get the balance, right? 3 months of immense stress for me. Big P&L, don't want to lose reputation. How am I going to do this? I did everything under the sun to be able to manage that, right? Knocked all the right doors, did every single thing. Eventually, 2 days before, I got all my tickets from the right sources, right? It all happened. But I felt immense stress, and I did everything possible that I could. So I didn't fall short of effort. Me, my team did every single thing, every door we could have knocked, we knocked. That learning was, what was in my control? Me putting in that effort and knocking each door that I could, putting in every single energy element into this, right? Which I did. Did it really help in me taking that stress? No. And that realization happened is because one sleepless night, I was just roaming around in my house, walking from one end to the other. At 2 a.m., my wife walks in and she's like, "What's going on? Why are you so stressed?" And she just had a chat with me saying that, look, you can't control that outcome. It's not in your hand. You should only focus on what you have. So it's in your hand where you want to put your energy. If you have 100% energy, right now you're putting 50% into your work, 50% in stressing. You rather put 100% energy into the work, and the outcome will be what it has to be. And it will only be good if you put 100%. That's exactly what I did. Post that, I changed the output and I only focused on saying everything's going to be, I'm doing everything that I can. And the outcome will be in my favor. And it happened 2 days before we got everything. And so now these lessons that you learn shape the way you look at a particular...
Keep improving your narrative algorithm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Internal narrative algorithm.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you a macro question which will kind of cover this whole, journey in a way. In the hero's journey, the classical arc, there is a Banvas. And the Banvas is where you meet your mentors, you meet get your lessons and all of that. But the really sort of powerful story, and a story that carries for centuries and decades and forever actually, is where there is a transformation of the hero also. So the hero also has to transform. And some of the transformations you sort of explained. But if we were to look at your current version, 42?
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis 35, 7-year-old version. So, and fortunately, life also for human beings changes every 7 years. And the levels of maturity. What would you sort of pin down are the transformations. And to make it very simple, I'll also sort of draw a framework. Your transformations in health, and I don't mean just physical, including your spiritual, your transformation in the way you look at wealth, transformation in the way you look at work, and transformation in the way you look at relationships. So the 35-year-old version of you, obvious signs, you used to smoke, get stressed up, drink a lot of coffee and all of that. Now you have gone into the, much, much cleaner. Each one of them, what would you say would be two or three major transformation that happened, which has created the 42-year-old version of you? So let's begin with health.
So there's a massive difference between the person I was at 35 versus I am at 42. At 35, I was an outcome of all my patterns and conditioning of my life, right? Like I said, I was surface level spiritual. I liked the concept of spirituality and being a good human being or whatever, but there was all external, not internal at all. Uh, and all kind of validation, all kind of ambitions were all external.
External scorecard, basically.
External scorecard. Eventually, it's validation. Na? Come out of a great car. I live in this great house. I'm a successful entrepreneur. I have $1 billion company. Parents are proud of me. I'm wearing this watch. Whatever it is, right? It's all external validation, right? Which all comes from conditioning. When I started meditating on these patterns one by one, then you actually go down and say, hey, I saw this one Bollywood movie and this character came from rags to riches and this is the lifestyle he had, and that impression stays with you forever, and you're chasing something subconscious that you have no idea of. You don't even want to be that person, right? But you're chasing this one thought that came to you when you watch something. And these are what impressions are, right? Like I had this whole... and then you realize, once you know that pattern, then you realize whether you want to hold it or you want to drop it, right? The 35-year-old Monish was not aware at all of what he ate, what he felt, what he thought. It was just outcome driven by some picture that I was painted, and then I was chasing that picture, right? Uh, the version of me now is one with mind, body, emotions, everything, right? At that point, I think it was all going in different directions, and I feel if I need to be one with my uh, physical self, mental self, emotional self, then I need to feed in the right kind of energy that goes across the board. So when I experiment with what food I eat, when I eat, and what kind of thoughts and emotions it brings into me, my decision making, how it changes. I do a lot of this, and I'm very aware.
So you're actually
this.
experimenting with yourself and noting the results.
And that I've been doing this for the last 4 years.
Really? So I just want to
Yeah.
get one thing off because a lot of people, meditation means a lot to very many people. What's your ritual of meditation?
I think for me, meditation means self-inquiry, self-analysis.
Is it a day-long process, or is it after every action you take a pause and...
I think it goes through the day at a level of awareness, and there is certain time that I carve out to just sit by myself and be in nature to meditate. So I'll tell you my routine, and it fluctuates a little bit because I've not got to 100% state. Like I said, I'm moving it, but on most days I'll wake up between 4 and 5. I like to check my emails and do my work for the first 30 minutes so that I get those thoughts away.
Okay. Otherwise lingering.
I'll keep planning my whole day because I'm obsessed with work. And it is a big part of my reality today. It takes up a huge part of my brain energy and my physical time. So I get that out of the way so that I can just tackle whatever. And then there are days that something would have blown up and then I give it my entire energy then. But once that is out, then I do 4-5 things every morning. I hydrate really, really well. I will go out for a run or a walk.
So hydrate is what? Just plain water?
Plain water. I will sit and meditate for half an hour. Then I will go for a long walk or a run or whatever. But I like being out in nature because I feel like I draw personally a lot of energy from these 5 elements. So I love the sun, I love the wind, water, the sky, and earth. So plants, right? So So then I am spending a good 1.5 hours between meditating and walking and running, or up to 2 hours by myself. Mind quietens down. I can really enjoy nature, and then I let the
I want to actually,
yeah
expand. You're obviously emphasizing it and following it with practice, but you do therefore believe that it's very important for a leader to spend, for anyone for that matter, spend a lot of time with just themselves,
100%.
not with iPods, earphone,
Nothing.
headphones, nothing.
Nothing.
It is
By
just
yourself
self. Yeah.
in nature. I'm not listening to any music. I'm not doing any of that. I'm not on my phone. Because what happens is that's the time when you spend time with yourself, do you allow something higher than you and to enter you, which I don't know whether it's part of you, whether it's external. I have no idea. But the clarity of thought that you get out of, you will figure out there are two types of thoughts that at least I bucketed in my head. One is a passing thought which comes out of some content that I've watched, or some incident that has happened, or some past memory that pops up, or whatever. But that is a very surface level thought. And then there are deeper thoughts that come to you, where ideas, strategy, intuition, uh, some kind of some kind of uh, telling you be careful about something, some kind of thoughts that give you some kind of guidance. When you spend time with yourself, you will get a lot of these. So
2 hours in the morning done. You're at around what, 7:38 this time.
seven. So around, I try to finish at least all of this by quarter to 7. Uh, so that quarter to 7, I wake the kids up, and 7:30 I'll go them to drop them to the bus stop, and then between 7:30 to 8:30 is my time, either continued with self or with the wife. Right. So the only time I get my wife is both of us will go every single morning. We have a blue toka in our lane. We'll go for coffee there, and we'll sit and have, whether we are talking, we're just chilling. She's on her phone, maybe I'm on my phone. It depends. 40-45 minutes we spend together. We go back home, quickly shower and leave for work. So I leave for work. I'm most days in office by 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:30 to around uh, 7, 7:38 in the evening, and sometimes even 8:39. I'm not available for anything else in the world except my work. So I actually cut off. I forget everything else because I'm so into my work. And I look to finish everything that I have planned for that day. Anything which is low priority, I'm able to now see that this is low priority. So now I don't put that much energy on it. I've started delegating, which I didn't do very well before. So I focus on the higher items which are highly impactful, that require my attention to make an 80% impact at least. So this is my day. I'm not spending, I very rarely spend time on doing anything outside of work during that time, right? My calendar is very well blocked out. That's again something I learned from my mentors, that I figured out putting everything on the calendar and then going by the calendar. Calendar is perfectly color coded and all of that. And I've got my one-on-ones, and I've got my external meetings and internal meetings and review meetings.
But that
and
also needs discipline.
brainstorming
That needs
meetings.
discipline.
Yeah, and I have like
Yeah.
even 30 minutes marked out just to look at my emails and my WhatsApps during that segment, right? So I'm not missing out on important. Again, 7 days out of 10, I'm disciplined. On most days, I eat one time a day,
Okay.
which is in the afternoon at around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I will basically eat sweet potato, some form of protein, very healthy food, not external stuff, but generally extremely healthy, that keeps me very, very full for the entire day. And then go home, spend some time with the kids, put them to sleep. 9 out of 10 times I fall asleep with them, and wife is sleeping alone in her room. But that's the pattern. Have a hot shower, get that energy cleansed, and then pass out.
You talked about consumption of content also, uh, form of consumption. How do you sort of?
So again, I think deep patterns, right, that one needs to understand. Um so my pattern until recently uh, used to be that I would eat late at night, watch a lot of content at night. I love content, OTT, all of that. I must have seen every possible series, etc. not really prioritizing sleep. So the day would still same passion would come out, etc. But would sleep at 2, have put food into my system late, turning fat, feeling getting some energy, but feeling not that 100% output, etc. As I keep experimenting and trying these things, I figure out the output is so much better. So now the race that I feel that 7 versus 3 is that 7 days are this aware self, 3 days are those past 40 years of conditioning and routine that comes out.
But even that recognition कि 7-3 हो गया है, उसको 8-2
Yeah.
करने का है,
Yeah.
9-1 करने का है. I mean, that's a
And also on the 3 days that I know, I'm fully aware.
कि हो रहा
But
है.
I'm being true to myself कि ये मजा आ रहा है at this point. So which personality is coming out, that awareness is there. Which personality I love more right now is also very, very clear. So I'm feeding personality A as much as I can. Sometimes personality B gets fed up.
It says, I
With the
also
wrong
want
kind
a-
of input, and then it wakes up and
Wakes up.
and commands more, right? So I feel like that's why I stopped smoking. I don't drink at all. There are those very rare instances, etc. I'm watchful of what food I eat, but then I'm also aware कि एक pattern अगर break हो गया, and I've had one night where I'm watching content, then I'm like, अच्छा चलो, is the Shruti? Is there some wafers at home? Do we have something? Then she'll say, okay, it's there. I'll go get it. I'll munch half a packet of wafers. So then you're building that. Then you're not sleeping well. You're heavier the next day, slightly lethargic. So you can observe that. Now I'm at that state where I'm aware of what's going on, right? And I feel awareness leads to growth.
Last question. This 7, 8, 10, actually 42-year-old journey, if you were to educate somebody who is much younger, in the 20s, and see a katha ka sar, jo mere sikhलाई ka entire nichod, the distilled version of it, 4 or 5 first principles, if you had to just share, doesn't have to be in any order, doesn't have to be, but 4 or 5 first principles which a 20, 25-year-old person could look at, and not the cliches, work hard and all of that, but to say, okay, the process that took me 42 years to figure out, is there a way in which at least you can be aware that you could figure out if you go this way?
I strongly believe that each person can completely control their destiny and the outcome of how they feel, right? Not looking at the outcome in terms of money or comparing to somebody else, etc., but comparing the outcome of or owning the outcome of feeling joyful. And that requires a lot of internal work. I feel a lot of us, the way we are taught from childhood, is external. The one thing that I would like to share with people, and I would sincerely urge, is spend more time in knowing yourself.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of us don't know each other. Go more internal. When you start going more internal, everything automatically around you will start becoming easier for you to take better decisions and make wiser life choices. Whether it's work, whether it's relationships, it'll automatically improve because you're more present. And when you're more present, you're giving in 120% of your time and energy into that element or that task that you're doing. Now, whether it's spending time with your kids or whether it's at work, you're fully present. If you're not fully present, then your outcome will also
Doesn't
not
matter
be.
anyway.
Yeah. So that would
Great.
be my
I think that's the
only
best
takeaway.
lesson to, rather than giving 5, 6, 10 points. It's just that if you spend time to discover yourself, everything else will kind of fall in place.
It'll follow.
Yeah. Thanks a ton.
I had a really good time.
I had a great time, Monish.
Thank you for joining us on Journey of Leaders. If today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on the principles we have uncovered and how they might apply to your own journey. Leadership is not about titles or positions. It's about choices, consistency, and the courage to act when it matters the most. The wisdom shared here comes from the lived experience, tested in uncertainty, refined through adversity, and strengthened over time. I am Captain Raghu Raman. Stay with us as we continue to explore the first principles of leadership, one conversation at a time.